How do you deal with the constant rejection in academia? And there's a couple of ways that I want to talk about in terms of you dealing with this. The first way that a lot of people will deal with this is they will internalize it. I go through this all the time. I think of myself as a failure. I think of myself as I couldn't do this thing. I do not have the skill set. I do not have any of the things that should be required. I think that is absolutely normal, and that's the messaging that is often told if you were to pay attention to almost all of the self-help stuff, everything that's on YouTube, most things that are on YouTube, all those kind of things. It's always the story that the reason why you weren't successful is you didn't put in the effort, you didn't do a good enough job, you were not smart enough, you were not talented enough. And so by default, that you didn't put in the work, you weren't talented enough, all of those kind of things, you didn't have the capabilities, then that must be your problem. Now, a second objective or a second way to think about this particular problem is that you recognize that the system is unfair, that it penalizes people that come from different backgrounds, that it is clearly problematic, and we know all of those things are true. You could look at the literature, the paper by Merton about the Matthew effect. It's got 11,000 citations, and that paper is all about the unfairness that is exhibited within science, and lots of people have studied this. You go through a lot of rejections if this is you, and I feel that this is me. I came from a family that did not go to university. I was the only one that went to university. I feel very much that, I feel very unrepresented in terms of the background that I came from. I came from a small, tiny town, but you have to recognize that the system is unfair in that particular situation for those individuals. And I can choose to fight the system in that particular scenario. And I could say, how do I change and fight the system? Now, the problem is that it dismantles the people that have already become successful. Those people are never going to want to let that down. They're not going to recognize any of the efforts that you put in to change the system, because the reason why they're actually there is because they are successful. Now, there is a third perspective that I choose to do, and I choose to default to this as much as I possibly can. So I can either internalize all of the rejection that I get, and I still do often. I can recognize that the system is unfair, and it is. It is not a fair system. Or I can choose to recognize that there's a whole bunch of silliness to all of it, and there's a whole bunch of displays to all of it, and I get back up and I just smile it off. And I recognize that I am not the only one that is going through repeated rejections. And I think about, how do I encourage those other people that are going through repeated rejections? How do I make it so that I have a heart that's inside that is more helpful, and that I can internalize and help, not necessarily internalize the pain, but I think of myself as, how do I be grateful, and how do I be helpful and encouraging to other people that are around me going through the same experiences? So why do I say grateful? And the reason is it's an absolute privilege to get back up and try again. It is a privilege to look at this world and realize that there is kind of a whole bunch of craziness that goes on, and recognize that there's craziness that goes on in various different ways. And it's a privilege to be able to wink and nod at all of this craziness that goes on and all of the unfairness that goes on, because I'm probably one of the fortunate few that can withstand the constant rejection, the constant getting back up and doing it again. There's very few people that can actually do that. Not very many people, even the successful ones, can do that. Most people that are successful, they're not going to be able to get back up and repeatedly bang their head against the wall. So there's a part in my brain that is, I had a lobotomy or something that has turned off those pain sensors. and has allowed me to get back up and do it again repeatedly. So I'm grateful for that. Not too many people can actually do that and look at the world and still be cheery with themselves. Mind you, there's lots of days that I do feel down, many days. It hurts, but I get back up and I do it again. And then I choose to say, you know what? I'm going to not pay attention to any of this nonsense. I'm going to say, you're good enough. You're a good person. You're doing just fine exactly how you are. If you remove the feeling of success that you get, those elated emotions that you actually get from the success that people offer you once in a while, then you're not going to value as much all of the downfalls, the failures, the rejections, all of that kind of stuff that you're going to get along the way. You realize it's just a bunch of nonsense at the end of the day. The only thing that you can do, and I know that some of this kind of feels kind of religious-y and all of that kind of stuff. I appreciate that. I think that there's a reason why religions actually exist many years ago, because there is many moments that are inherently unfair. There's many moments that you just have to give life a wink and a nod. Many moments where you just have to laugh through it, no matter what is going on around you. And you just say, man, that was weird. I'm going to get back up and do it again. And I'm going to tell other people, get back up and do it again. The only way that we can change this system is to get more of us underdogs, more of us buffoons that don't know anything, that are bumbling around. The more of us that get into the system, the more that it's actually likely to change, and the more that we can perhaps appreciate just how difficult it actually was to get there. All right, take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.